You ready, Sheena? All right, good sound. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Got one more signing in. I just want you to know it's going to be a challenge because I like to walk around, and Sheena has said that I have to stay in one place because she's running the camera. But welcome to the Good Neighbor Plan program community meeting. We, as you know, prior to the pandemic, we had a pretty good pace of having these meetings, so we'd have a chance to visit with all of the different communities around Love Field. We moved a lot to virtual. That had its own challenges, finding the right platform and those kind of things. So this time we're going to try a hybrid. We're doing the in-person to give the opportunity for live feedback from you all. We have a number of staff here, and we're, of course, broadcasting live streaming. So we'll also, in addition to taking any questions from anyone in the audience, we'll have some questions virtually too. So we'll do those kind of at the end when we get to Q&A. My name is Mark Diebner. I am the Director of Aviation. Department of Aviation is a city department. For those of you not familiar, the City of Dallas owns and operates Dallas Love Field. We also, in our department, have responsibility for two other facilities, Dallas Executive Airport and then the Vertiport downtown. But tonight really is about Love Field and how we're connecting with all of you around the community. Okay, Roger, I've got the clicker and I've clicked it, but it's not moving. Okay, well, okay, if I don't need it. So really this is about to bring everyone up to speed, what we've got going on at Love Field, things that are coming up, give everyone an opportunity to see those activities and then ask questions specifically about them. We try to keep it fairly high level, but we're more than happy to answer any and all questions, whatever level of detail. And then we also want to talk about kind of the engagement activities we've been doing since we last met. Helena and Rachel are here with our community engagement team. Rosalind is our community and tenant liaison is here as well, and they've been busy connecting with all of our tenants, stakeholders, citizens all the way around the airport. I do want to say that it's been a challenging time for the department employees because we, unlike a lot of facilities, were required to remain open throughout the pandemic. So all of our aviation employees had to continue showing up to work when all the other businesses shut down. So got to give them a lot of credit for showing up and keeping the airport open and operational. Overview, for those of you who don't know, the Good Neighbor Plan, we started kind of as an offshoot of our master planning process, going back all the way to 2012, right? Is that when we started? The idea being we would identify areas, and we recognize that the areas Love Field's not a terribly big airport, about 1,400 acres, but we have very distinct communities that border the airport all the way around. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of divided up the airport into zones, engage those communities individually, as well as having the larger community type meetings where it's open to all. But we really wanted to get feedback through this program in the interest of making Love Field, because it's owned by you. It is your airport. Even if you don't fly out of it, it is an asset of the city, and therefore it belongs to the citizens. And for a long time, the airport was very inward-looking, really didn't have a lot of engagement, was focused on the aviation activity on the airport and not really the effects and connections of the airport property with the surrounding community. Next one, Roger. And the big, early on, we really got a lot of feedback from the community on what the airport could be. We certainly heard loud and clear, and we've been on a pretty steady march for the past 8 or 9 years of improving the look of the airport all the way around, improve fencing, the aesthetics, landscaping, really trying to make the Love Field area something that the neighbors could be proud of. Getting rid of the chain link fence and the barbed wire and the ugly old bushes, and really cleaning that up. We've got a couple interesting and really exciting projects coming down the pipe that are going to take it really to the next level on how we're working with the surrounding community and utilizing airport property in a way that doesn't just benefit the airport and the traveling public, but also the citizens of Dallas as well. So here you go, target areas. Like I said, we divided up basically into 7 areas, kind of focusing a micro plan on each of those areas. Next one. So project updates. So the first very exciting thing, in addition to the fencing, which we've been replacing steadily over the years, we are totally redoing the entrance to the airport. Improved signage, landscaping. I don't know if you've ever tried to walk into Love Field or even walk around Love Field. There hasn't been contiguous sidewalks. We've never really focused on any kind of mobility initiatives. And so this is really changing that. And even if you try to walk into the airport previously, we had a narrow 3-foot, was it 3 or 4 foot? 3 or 4 foot width, sort of a standard size sidewalk. But many years ago, when the city put in the lighting, the street lighting on these big concrete bollards, they put those right on top of the sidewalk. So going around each of them left you about 12 inches of sidewalk. So all of that is being removed, improved. You'll be able to walk or ride your bike up into the terminal area. A lot of new landscaping, new signage, a new artwork, which is, if you haven't driven by the front of the airport, I came this way, I should have gone the other way. They've begun the installation for the brand new art piece that we're having at the front. That large red, it's a 100 or 90 foot wide sculpture that was commissioned through the public art program. It's called Lovebird, and it will be kind of our signature art piece at the entrance of the airport. So really improve how the airport looks, even if you're not going in the airport. We put the old sign, renovated the sort of 50s era Love Field sign, and that's installed there at Denton and Mockingbird. So really making a lot of improvements. And then the pedestrian improvements. This is, and we've got another project coming up. We'll talk about it in a minute. But we have a goal to build what we call the Love Field Trail Loop, which we don't have right now, is a way for a pedestrian or a cyclist to circumnavigate the airport. There just weren't sidewalks. So we've been on a steady march to install sidewalks to allow folks, especially when there's a lot more density coming. If you look just south of Mockingbird on that Maple corridor, a lot of multifamily. So getting connectivity, we've got the DART rail, we've got a station at Inwood, and we've got one at Burbank, and then pedestrian and cycle connections to Bachman. We're really putting a lot of effort into that. This, right now, if you walked in the front of the airport, there really isn't a crosswalk to speak of. So everything we're doing on these improvements are about mobility and pedestrian safety. Kind of overall, the city has a Vision Zero, which is an initiative for cities across the country to bring pedestrian deaths to a zero number. So making better pedestrian, safer pedestrian connections where they conflict with automobiles. Next one there. So here's just some highlights. We took down the old tombstone, nice wide sidewalks that'll let folks travel all the way down Mockingbird and really create connectivity. Next one. And then the next project, kind of that second piece, and we've had separate public meetings, and I know some of you have attended those, is our Lemon Avenue Streetscape project. So that is really a combination of a hike and bike trail that's going to go all the way along the east side of the airport, connecting, what would you say, that University, let's say, all the way down connecting to Bachman Lake Trail. So we've been busily working on that. We're 60-70% design now. So it's going to be really exciting. It'll create a really nice pathway. In addition to just the mobility improvements, we're also working with the Elm Thicket neighborhood to do a historic neighborhood history project where we can have signage. So as you go along the trail, you'll get some connectivity back to the neighborhoods that border the airport. Been a lot of talk about neighborhoods and transitions, and we've been working with neighborhoods on both sides of the airport to really sort of capture and keep that history, keep it alive. Also intersections, we have completed the Lemon Avenue Bluff View intersection with pedestrian improvements, lighting, created a new turn lane in and out of a couple of businesses, including our aviation administration building. We have fairly heavy traffic, so it's really a pretty exciting project. It's really going to transform that east side of Lemon Avenue, which Lemon Avenue, if you didn't really notice, there are no sidewalks on either side of Lemon Avenue basically from Mockingbird to Northwest Highway. So this will help that connectivity. Next one, Roger. 60% design, like I said, I think they're a little past that now. We do expect to be done with design next spring, and then we'll get that out for bid, a 10-foot wide shared use pathway, hike or walking, cycling, that kind of thing. It's also going to mesh with a county project on Lovers. So the county has a big mobility plan, Dallas County, and one of their projects will be Lovers. So if you think about, these neighborhoods having access to good bike infrastructure on the major thoroughfares connecting with what we're doing here on Lemon, that's a fairly convenient, easy way for someone to get to Bachman Park, for example. And that's about that. And as you can see, we've got a couple pocket parks that are actually on aviation-owned land, Midway Manor Park right there. So we'll be making improvements on those as well. Next one. Runway 13 right. So the Denton Avenue runway, we've been talking about this now for a couple of years. We knew it was coming. The time finally arrived. We broke ground earlier this year. We also had the wonderful luck of having the wettest May on record. So we've been trying to have a very aggressive schedule on that reconstruction, knowing that having all of the traffic, while that runway is closed and is being rebuilt, all of our traffic is on the east side. We originally had scheduled the runway closure for 10 months, with the whole project lasting almost 2 years with the associated work on taxiways, but we could do that while the runway was operational. Right now we're looking at some delay, some weather delays. Our contractors got all the problems that other contracts have had, supply issues, workforce issues, so we're going to continue to work with them. The original schedule of completion was February, mid to late February. That's looking probably late March to maybe mid-April. Still got a long way to go. It's a very big project, $150 million project, but we're doing everything we can with our staff and our contractor to minimize that runway closure. So we'll continue working on that. Next one there. Little graphics. You can see that runway is 8,800 feet long, so it's a little over a mile and a half long, 150 feet wide. You don't really get a perspective of it until you get out there, but it's a lot of concrete. Now, runways are not constructed like roads. They're a much more technical construction process where because of the impact weight of the heavy planes, so each layer, the subbase, the base, and then the paving, each has to be tested and measured to make sure it's, because unlike a pothole, airports can't just live with a pothole and tell the airplanes to steer around it, or we'll put some cones out there. So making sure that we build it correctly is our top priority. We don't want to have a situation where we're trying to get the project done and anyone cuts any corners or tries to move things along in a way that doesn't give us the safest, most reliable construction that we can get on this project. Next one, Roger, please. And then the associated taxiways. You could see the subbase. So you can see the depth. The final concrete layer is, what's that, 18 inches, Aro? Is that what you told me? So the depth of just the top layer of concrete is 18 inches. And then all the rest of the base material, it's like a cake. And each layer's got to be done and tested and be ready for the next layer. So pretty involved construction process. Just in additional paving, I don't know, that's not very interesting, but a lot of reinforcement baskets which connect the panels, which allow some flex without separation. And then we do a lot in the way of maintenance of these runways too, because of the pounding they take, and the tolerance the FAA allows for any deviation or any hole is pretty small. A 3-inch hole will require a repair. So things that you would get by on a city street are not acceptable on a runway. Next slide, Roger. Community engagement. We've done a number of, go ahead, next one there. A number of projects, even though we were in pandemic, we've continued to work with Catholic Charities. We did a big food giveaway down at our other facility, Dallas Executive. We've partnered with them. How many times do we do that? 4 times? 3? And we did have a food giveaway here at Love Connection. That's airport property where we have a remote lot. So it was hot. I was there. And they're all very happy to show pictures of me carrying onions. But we fed a lot of families that day. I think, and talking to the Catholic Charities, the demand has lessened. But certainly during the early parts of the pandemic, we had huge turnout at the food giveaway events. So, and it's all aviation staff going down there and contributing. That's the aviation crew that helped work. Next one. As we continue, we have an employee advisory committee. They continue to help us with engagement activities. So we have back to school drive, gathering up school supplies and delivering. I'm going to, so in that sort of connection, we're trying to build stronger bonds with DISD. I think city is in general, but us as a department. And so keeping close connections with those schools, the Medrano, Obadiah Knight. So there are a number of schools that are pretty close to the airport, and we're really trying to strengthen those relationships, how the Department of Aviation can support our community in that way as well. And I did get hoodwinked into being principal for a day, so I'm going to do that, and I'll report back on if I survive. Heart Walk, we partnered with the Friends of Bachman Lake. Also on a number of things, plogging initiatives, and then we had the Heart Walk. So that was a pretty exciting project, kind of focusing some, activities around the Bachman Lake Park area. So that was pretty enjoyable. We had a number of staff that are here that went to that. I think several folks. I did not attend. I had a 9-year-old birthday party, and I would have much rather go to this than to the 9-year-old birthday party. I'm just saying. I have a 9-year-old kid, so don't think I just showed up to a 9-year-old birthday party. I thought I'd clear that up before I was going to a party with 9-year-olds. So next one, Roger. And then through our Lost and Found, we get a lot of stuff in our Lost and Found that remains unclaimed for quite some time. So we've been working a program to partner with Dallas Hope Charities for those items that are usable. Nothing, no personal items, things like that. But we do get all kinds of stuff that winds up found, and we'll hold on to it for a while. But if it, doesn't get claimed, we've had some very unique items show up in Lost and Found, including a prosthetic leg? And no one claimed it. Can you believe that? We had it for months. I was just really surprised by that. You think someone would miss that? I'm just saying. Next one, Roger, please. And then a number of our staff attended the Elm Thicket North Park National Night Out. We also participate. Do we have Juneteenth parade in here? Oh, we talked about that. So Elm Thicket North Park neighborhood, there's Polk Rec Center. So we attended National Night Out as well. Okay, next one. And really kind of talk about this in a way that if you have, there's a lot of community leaders that participate in these meetings. If you have an event and you'd like us to participate, give out airport information, we always have giveaways. Be sure and let us know. Probably Rachel in the back would be great. Make sure, give her a heads up on when your event might be, and we'd be happy to participate. We also did a blood drive. Next one. These aren't that interesting. And we, upcoming on the 30th, we'll be working, is this a city-county initiative, right? The community cleanup stuff, right? So we're going to have community cleanup, the information. So the trash off is basically clean up the community, but and then bring the trash to a central location where Department of Sanitation will have roll-off containers. They'll also be able to handle the hazardous stuff too, right? Paints, chemicals. It's really handy. I don't know if any of you have been to the Dallas County Hazardous Waste Facility. It's over on Garland Road. It's in Garland, I think. Plano Road. It's a great facility. If you've got old plate, old paint, oil, it's a drive-through. They just take it from you and then they dispose of it safely, trying to keep all those kind of things out of the landfills, watershed. Don't dump them in the storm drains, things like that. And then overall, we'll help support the trash off with the collection center there at our Love Connection. Next one. Contact info. We've got, of course, 670 Love, which is our operations center, available 24 hours a day. That handles all of our any airport question you might have. They've got information on flights, on parking, and then if it's after hours, they'll be happy to take messages and get it to the Good Neighbor Plan staff. Of course, we have a dedicated email, and then our program website, where a lot of this information is on the website, and there's a lot of good information there, as well as the Dallas Love Field website, dallas-lovefield.com. We have a lot of up to the minute information on wait times in the checking, through the TSA queue, kind of parking availability. If you're planning on flying this weekend or this Thanksgiving, I'm going to say that we are anticipating the same levels of traffic that we had pre-pandemic. So just a little note on that. So, our low point, well, let me start this way. So Love Field serves, you know, and it fluctuates. We certainly have very busy times, the holidays, spring break, things like that. But, you know, we serve anywhere between, let's say, 25 to 35,000 people a day go in and out of our facility, right? That's sort of arriving and departing passengers. During the height of the pandemic, which was probably the second week of April, when in 2020, we were seeing less than 1,000 people in the terminal. So 25,000 to 1,000. I mean, it was amazing. Throughout 2020, you know, our traffic, you know, started to come back a little bit, not a lot. And then towards the end of summer, things really started kind of picking up, getting some momentum. Then we had sort of the second surge in 2020, kind of fell off. Holidays last year were about 50%, maybe a little less than they were pre-pandemic. Then this year, we started the year pretty slow, January, February fairly slow, and then April we saw probably a 20% increase. Then in May we saw another 20, then in June and July. In July, it came back so quickly. In July of this year, for the month, we were a little under 95% of the traffic volumes we had pre-pandemic. So, and likewise, the number of flights has come back to close to the pre-pandemic levels. It's largely driven by leisure travel. So our business traveler is not quite back yet. We saw a drop off. We're running now at about 80, little over 80% of the volumes pre-pandemic. So we're about a 20% from where we were this same time in 2019. Now that being said, the current forecast for Thanksgiving through Christmas, we will be at, if not even maybe a little more, in passenger volume as we were in 2019. So it will be a very busy time at Love Field if you're planning to travel during that holiday season. So we expect all the same sort of issues that come with those kind of volumes. Lots of traffic on Mockingbird, getting in and out of the airport. Number of flights will be about the same. We won't see any increase in numbers of operations. Maybe a slight increase. I think we're trying to remember. During July, we were getting up to about 175 plus 5, 180, 185 commercial day. Probably be somewhere around maybe another 10 commercial takeoffs per day to get us back to that volume. So you know it's coming back. Still have challenges, like a lot of businesses with workforce, certainly concessions. So we're doing everything we can to make sure we take care of our customers that are coming through the airport. So what's the next one? So this part, really, we like to hear, most of this meeting is a kind of an update on where we are with our projects, but we also like to hear from each of you. We like to get questions, additional input. We certainly think it's our job to listen to all of you, the owners of the airport. We balance the needs of the city and the communities surrounding us with the stakeholders we have on the airport, I mean the airlines, the general aviation operators. A lot of businesses count on Love Field. We support probably, I forget what probably 11,000 jobs on the airport between airlines, the support industries around that, the Department of Aviation, all the general aviation activities. Got the Braniff Center, we talked about it last meeting. I think we had a grand opening for the co-working space. So that's a really nice addition on that front-facing Lemon Avenue, really taking that old building, getting it repurposed and productive. Callaway's is open and operating now, which is the one thing about those commercial activities. Even though they're on airport property and they pay us rent, which goes in the aviation fund, they're also generating sales tax and ad valorem lease value, which is taxable, which goes into the city tax base. So we think it's a win-win to continue on that commercial activity. All right. So quick update. We're here to answer questions, comments. Mr. Dickey, I'm sure you have.
Oh, I do. I thought I didn't see if anybody else had.
Okay, all right. So before Mr. Dickey has questions and comments, anything? Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned working with each side of the airport, which is preserving history with signage. Can you give me an example of what
So
entails?
there was, for the Elm Thicket neighborhood, the BC Workshop, is that it? BC Workshop, which is kind of a planning collective in Dallas, worked to do a pictorial kind of these panels for the Elm Thicket neighborhood, kind of talking about when it was founded, how it grew over the years. We displayed those in the airport for a number of years. We worked with the next project. We are working with the West Love Field Neighborhood Association, and we recently got a grant, right? And we'll be working with BC Workshop to do that same thing, sort of really document the history of the West Love Field neighborhood and create some panels and some informational things. When we developed the trail system on the Lemon Avenue side, one of the things we've got the designer doing is incorporating some of that historical information in the design of the benches, and, so as people use the trail, they'll say, this is you're going past the Elm Thicket North Park neighborhood. It was founded in, whatever it was, 1906, and was, so kind of connecting. It's sort of that cross, the age of public art, public information, kind of like Texas historical. We have a number of historical markers around the airport, so kind of that same process that we sort of expose folks that are going to be traveling around the airport to the history of the neighborhoods that they might not otherwise. I mean, how many people drive down Lemon Avenue don't even know what that neighborhood is called, much less sort of its history or its culture. We're excited about the West Love Field. That was Helena did a great job on that, by the way. Good job. Yes, sir.
So first of all, thanks for having these meetings. I think it's much appreciated. It's unfortunate more people don't show up. I think you all do a lot of great work. I mean, the neighborhood work is wonderful. The charity outreach is great. I mean, I think that from my perspective, a lot of people who live in this neighborhood are concerned about the noise. And, I live close to Lemon Avenue. Everybody understands the noise is going to be high now. It seems just anecdotally to me that there are more flights taking off at night. And I guess what's concerning to me is we've watched the whole presentation and there has been no information about noise. I mean, how is that? Are there metrics about noise? Are you all measuring these? I guess would be my first question. My second question is, what are the plans once the other runway is open?
So we do. We measure noise through a process called a noise contour. We don't necessarily include that in these presentations because we have a separate series of meetings through our Love Field Environmental Advisory Committee. So the Environmental Advisory Committee was formed out of the Love Field Citizens Committee, which goes way back to the 70s, when the neighbors really coalesced about the noise impacts to the neighbors, to the neighborhoods, primarily to the south. So the airport has kept that committee in place for all these many years. The thing about noise in airports is, we recognize noise. We also don't have the ability at a local level to restrict flights. So all of the movement of aircraft, takeoffs and landings, are 100% under the control of the FAA, not the airport. So what we do is try and inform and educate. So we have a number of voluntary noise abatement procedures, some of which are unenforceable because of changes in federal law. We're actually working on a briefing to update that program to the City Council. We provide the contours to give everyone a sense of what the noise impact is. So the FAA has a specific formula of measuring noise impacts, and so we follow that criteria. What we don't do is really talk about reducing noise by shifting or trying to influence the movement of aircraft, because we can't do it. Now, the other issue we have at an airport like Love Field, we have neighbors on both sides. We have 2 runways. So the neighbors on one side think runway on the other side is what we should use all the time. Of course, the neighbors on that side think that runway is where all the flights should be all the time. I will say that on the east side of the airport, we knew, and we as part of our environmental review of the project, we knew that the noise impact would be greater on the east side during the closure, which is why we've been trying to compress that. Once that runway is open, it is our position as the airport is to have balanced runway usage. That we would have, and that's operations. So normally we see more commercial activity off of the west side and more GA off of the east side. So the smaller corporate jets, because they're all the FBOs and all their hangars are on the east side. I don't know that. Well, I can say that we know the numbers of flights have not increased. As a matter of fact, our peak of number of flights leaving Love Field was in 2005, where we had a lot of GA activity. There was a lot more commercial activity because even though we had less passengers, and you probably noticed it when you fly now, in the 90s even, you would get on a plane and you would always have an empty seat, right? When's the last time you booked a flight, got on a flight, and there was an empty seat? I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's a full flight. So the total number of flights has reduced in the U.S. The number of passengers going up because they're filling the planes fuller in order to make more money. Because it costs the same amount of money to fly a plane, whether it's 50% full or 100% full. And I think the airlines figured out if it's 100% full, we make more money than if it's 50% full. So our total number of operations is down.
So I guess my first question is, are you measuring noise and do you have metrics? And I don't think I've heard an answer.
We measure noise. We measure noise impact. There's not a way to measure noise. So we have noise monitors around the airport. But that's not an active system because there's all kinds of, if a loud truck drives by, it can't differentiate. How we measure noise is we look at what planes took off, what their flight trajectory was, and then we hire a consultant who says, okay, inside this ring, the noise impact was a day-night average sound level of 65 decibels. Anything greater than that, anything closer in, is considered impactful by the FAA. Everything outside of that 65 circle, well, it's not really a circle, but you know what I mean, is the FAA classifies that as non-impactful. That 65 DNL average sound level is the threshold that the FAA has established. We measure that. As far as a metric, the only metric is whether that gets bigger or smaller year over year. There's no metric on a daily or monthly basis. We don't measure noise actively. It's sort of a rear view look.
Since the east side has much more of a buffer from that runway noise and the west side, can you really, is there a way to tell, yes, this neighborhood is experiencing, more noise than that neighborhood?
Yes. Inside that, in that ring that we draw, it tells us number of residential acreage and population that's affected. So I can tell you right now, the west side and the north side are the only residential areas affected by noise right now. So everything on the east side is outside of that 65 contour. There's a small amount of the west side. This is pre-pandemic, before the runway closure, because it's quiet over there on the west side now. And the north. So really the affected people are primarily, the largest population are the multifamily housing that's on the north side of Bachman Lake, because they're in the direct flight path. Everybody on the sides is less affected than at the ends of the runway. Now, thankfully, on the south side, it's industrial and commercial on the south side. But on the north side of the airport, we have a lot of residential. And that's the most affected population. Mr. Dickey.
Okay, the Love Connection property that's owned by the city?
Yes.
And so what's the plan for that?
November 1st, it will reopen as a remote parking facility for airport employees. No. No, surface, we have about we need about 1,500, we have about 1,500 spaces total on that lot. We need 1,300 on a daily basis, plus over because of cross shifts. So you need spaces for people to park while other people are coming to get their cars. So there'll always be empty spaces just by the nature of the shift work at the airport. But Mockingbird and Harry Hines. So now we did acquire, there was a small piece of property that had a liquor store and a dry cleaner, so that's been acquired, it's been demoed, and we've squared up that fence. I just had a conversation today with someone about what's the plan on the Manor Hotel. The hotel directly across the street continues to be challenging with police code issues. So it's not anything we're in control of, but I think the city and the residents of that area, West Love Field, are very interested in what's going on at the Manor Hotel and what we can do to get that cleaned up.
So the Cole Manor, wasn't that just
Cole Manor.
by someone new and they removed that historic sign?
I noticed the sign was gone. I don't know about that. I don't.
My second question was, the two schools that I see most affected on the north side of Joe May and Salazar, Joe May Elementary, jets go straight over on the approach. Salazar, not as much as Joe May. Do you all do anything?
We've done some engagement with Joe May, haven't we? I know we did some speaking out there. Career Day, I thought that was one of the schools we did. Yeah, we'll reach out to them. And that's north of.
It's on Rock Bank.
Yeah.
And the jets go straight over.
Right.
And those kids live in those apartments you were talking about.
Right.
They're most affected. So the airport's negative impact on the quality of life on those kids.
Well, I can tell you out that far, because out by where Webb Chapel, where Fiesta is, and Marketplace Shopping Center, it's on the west side of Webb Chapel Extension, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
West of Webb Chapel.
Right. So that is that's on the outer edge, but you're right, that's definitely within the flight path of that area.
I understand from past conversations that FAA, you have restrictions from the FAA on what you can spend money on.
Correct.
I've never been clear on how, like, if
Well, it depends. If something's not directly, it's not on airport property, it's outside airport property, it's outside the 65 contour, we're fairly limited in what we could do to spend money. Now, staff resources, volunteering, doing those kind of things, the question would really be about dollar-wise. We can't, so a long time ago, the city, the airport spent some money on soundproofing improvements to Obadiah Knight and one other elementary, I forget now. Who remembers that? Huh? Rusk. So it's happened in the past, but this was a while ago when our noise contour was much bigger. So it is a challenge as the airport has gotten quieter over the years. If you go back and look at what that 65 contour, 70 contour, I mean, it went all the way downtown before the newer jets, stage 3, and that was kind of the bargain the airlines struck with the FAA. Once you're outside that 65 contour, the FAA, it's not allowable. Inside the 65 contour, we could look at some soundproofing program or something like that, but to be eligible for that, the airport would need to undergo a Part 150 study, which is noise impacts, and we have not and don't plan to conduct a 150 study anytime in the near future.
And why would that be?
Primarily because the 150 study is really a double-edged sword. So the 150 study is going to look at the science of the noise impact. So certainly what that 65 contour is, what affected populations they were. The recommendations that could come out of that study could further limit us in the efforts we might take with voluntary measures, dealing with private pilots. There just doesn't seem to be any upside in conducting a study like that. It'll takes a number of years, and frankly, the FAA has not allowed any further restrictions at any airport since that 150 study process began. So it's kind of the idea, the number of airports when they first set it up went through the process thinking, well, this will show we have noise impact, and the opposite happened. And once you're when you ask for permission and you're told no, right now we're not asking permission to do the efforts we're doing to try and mitigate the impacts of noise. Since we can't control the noise, the best we can do is mitigate that, try and get, behavior, try to reduce night flights as much as we can with GA. So those subtle ways we try to influence that. But I can tell you, looking at our contours, certainly, there's not enough population impacted for us to do anything that would really restrict aircraft movement or time of day or any of that. We would be nowhere on that.
So the soft things you're able to do,
So the voluntary noise abatement procedures, we're reviewing the preferential runway program.
what I'm talking about is impact on the people in the north.
Right.
School. I'm just saying, and this is a comment, not a question.
Sure.
You all found $48,000 to do the study on the redevelopment of the real estate north of the Northwest Highway, the highest best use study.
Correct.
It looked to me like it was just a way to try to figure out how we could reconfigure the neighborhood in a way that we might create an innovation thing or something that's good for business, maybe good for the airport. But it's not in your, I was like, what's the airport doing looking at how to redevelop our neighborhood, and why are we being told no on other uses of money and like that? How's the FAA allow that? And that's just a question.
Oh, I thought it was a comment. So.
Yeah, I changed it.
Okay.
I'd really like to hear that.
So as part of all of our master planning studies and initiatives, we need to know economic conditions in and around the airport. We've done the master plan at Love Field. We did a land use study at Executive that talked about how that connecting neighborhoods. That study that was done by UT Arlington was part of a graduate program in land use planning. So we sort of leveraged our connection with the university. So it really is a question of what's highest and best use. Separate and apart, and honestly, separate and apart from the emotional part of a neighborhood. And we understand that there's definitely emotional attachments to neighborhoods. But as the area around Love Field changes, and we've seen that, and I think the city, I don't know where we are, the planning and neighborhood vitality was, last I heard last year, because we went to a couple meetings, that department was initiating a Bachman area study, which was land use, dealing with the affordable housing issue as that land becomes more valuable. Because what we've seen in Elm Thicket is a prime example, right? There's not a neighborhood stabilization overlay. The smaller homes, what would be affordable, are all being bought out and replaced by very large, and there's nothing the neighborhood can do to stop it. Eventually, all the older homes that were in that neighborhood will be gone. That's the market at play. I think the study, as I understood it, for the entire Bachman area on that north side, really was about how do we stabilize that.
Where's that study?
It was planning, it was being headed by planning and or a neighborhood.
You mean you're talking about the Love Field North Land Use Study from 1988?
Oh, I'm sure they're updating it, but
I'm not aware of. That's great to know. I'd love to know.
well, I don't know where it is, and we're not leading it. We were just a participant. But the land use study that we did in that area is connected. So the airport owns property north of that. We own the shopping center there at the intersection of Webb Chapel and what's that cross street? I forget. Do you know, Rosalind?
Next to the Sam's Club, just west of the Sam's
No, yeah, we own that land, but we also own the shopping center, the marketplace. What is that cross street? I'll get it for you. So we own the shopping center, kitty corner from Fiesta. What is that cross street? Or Webb Chapel. As you go south on Webb Chapel. Lombardi.
You own that shopping center?
Yeah, we own that shopping center.
Lombardi, and then on the...
Yeah, it's got a Gold's Gym. There's a McDonald's. No, on the southeast side. We're catty corner to where the Fiesta is. So we own property up there. I don't know. The city of Dallas, the airport enterprise. Well, we are the city. The
You're an enterprise. You're not like everybody else.
Yes. Huh? The leasehold improvement value is taxed, so it's assessed and pays ad valorem tax. The underlying property is owned by the city, so the dirt is not taxed.
So there's no ad valorem tax because the city owns it.
On the dirt, the improvements, the building.
The dirt could be, in other words, if the airport doesn't know why, we're losing out on the tax on the dirt, which as you know is getting more valuable. Are you going to divest, or what's the purpose? What's the plan? In other words, there's a net loss to the tax base because...
City owns the property?
Yes.
I
And so,
Well,
what's the...
there's some foregone revenue on the value of the dirt. I'll agree with that. The improvements, so the revenue for the dirt, for the land that is owned by the city but is an airport asset, we have the lease. So the leaseholder pays the airport enterprise a lease payment. Right. And their lease is it was a long-term lease. This was done in probably the 80s, I think. So it was like a 40-plus year lease. I don't. I've heard, anyone who was around back then is long since gone. Some of that may have been strategic because of the noise impact of the airport. A lot of airports acquire property to prevent development because of the conflict.
But that's where the noise contours you said were...
But commercial development in those noise areas is what we want. We don't want residential.
I
That would be our preference.
Well, wouldn't you say, this not to be argumentative, but when you talk about someone decides highest best use, and I know that real estate developers, a vacant piece of land, that's not the highest best use. But as a park person, I just say, well, we
Right,
differ on
sure.
highest best use definition.
Sure.
So I would not expect real estate developers' opinion of highest best use is the thing that we all must follow. It's an opinion.
Sure.
You could argue that the highest best use on that property for the taxpayer is not to have the city on it, because nobody knows. I grew up, I lived there, I had no idea.
Who's responsible for maintaining that property? So if we see problems with compliance, do we call the police on the airport then? Like, how does that work? Like,
Well, if you call the police, you call the police.
well, I mean,
You didn't call us.
I grew up in Dallas. I lived in O'Hare, by O'Hare Airport, down by O'Hare Modernization Program, and we used to call the police on the airport for it being loud. And now they rotate the runways, but I've never heard of an airport owning commercial real estate.
Every airport owns commercial real estate. Every airport does. DFW has 8,000 acres dedicated to commercial development.
That's on site.
Yeah, but they have 18,000 acres.
Yeah, but that's often distinguished within their land, whereas that shopping center you have to go over park district land.
No, I understand. I'm telling you, that's
Great information.
land owned by the airport.
Are we still making any acquisitions?
No. The two properties we have, the Love Connection, which was the land, at Denton, where we have the remote lot, Mockingbird and Harry Hines, and then we have another 16-acre parcel just south of Mockingbird off of Denton, which is a potential, we've talked about before, a potential consolidated rental car site. But any other acquisition would be to true up the airport boundary. So there's,
Those are the only three properties that the airport owns.
no.
Those two, and then the one we.
No, we own Dallas Executive. We own a parcel in Lancaster. Yeah, no, that's airport-owned property. We own property in Lancaster, right?
Commercial property?
No, it's a vacant lot.
Did we find out the reason why that property was purchased though? Because
Which one?
like Fiesta, that's their mall.
Well, it's not Fiesta. That's privately owned. It's the shopping center across.
Well, that shopping center though, because I think that that is kind of interesting that it's not owned by private developers as we work with the community and build a community one.
Well, it has a long-term lease, so nothing's going to change on that property until that lease expires.
Sell it. I mean, the lease is for sure. It's not like the city has to own that,
We,
those leases.
yeah, we could sell it, but it's only going to be worth what the leasehold's going to generate. So you're not going to get market value until the lease expires. It's not in our best interest to sell that property right now. It may be in the future when the value comes back. But the value of the land is what the land generates. It's not what the surrounding land is. That property is encumbered with a lease. So that lease is in effect, even if we sell it. Anyone who buys it is only going to get the lease payment, which is a couple $100,000. I think it's like another 20 years. We got a number of years to go. It doesn't there's no business, not one business reason to sell it now. I agree. When I found out we owned it, I was like, why do we even own that? But selling it now doesn't make any sense, and we wouldn't do that.
But in South Dallas, there's Bear Street, the city of Dallas, put millions of dollars in and lost tons of money in new development when they came to the area. So to me, it seems like a private developer would work better with the community to build something nice that the community could love and support. And they could probably work with the Lakers or the VC to work with that.
I'll come back and
I agree, but that's not happening until that lease comes to an end. I mean, that lessee is going to keep that shopping center because they're making a lot of money.
yeah, it's a good shopping center. The only vacant parts of that shopping center are along West Chapel Extension, and those are being filled up too. So
Yeah, I mean, it's not in bad shape. That's not a bad shopping center. You got a McDonald's, that's pretty well maintained, the gym. We haven't really, I drive by it frequently.
two more. I won't take up. I just got
I thought we had slides of that park, didn't I? Go next. Go next. Keep going. Yeah, oh, we will. We will. I'm trying to answer this question first. We had a graphic of the planning on the North Park, didn't we? Huh? No, no, it's a schematic of that North Park. It would probably go. Keep going. No, that's not. No, no, no. You guys had another.
See that, there it is, North Neighborhood.
But that the graphic where we showed that we were bringing it on the sides. Oh, okay. So does this have a pointer so everyone knows what we're talking about? So this is the North Neighborhood Park that we're working on, and actually that design is going to extend it a little bit down the sides, right? Is that what I saw? So it'll kind of broaden that out. The idea was it would connect to this neighborhood. This piece of property right here is owned, airport owned. It's that big wide path. It's got the ILS, part of the ILS, which is the Instrument Landing System, the FAA. So we have to maintain that property. But the equipment ends, and then there's a sort of a trapezoid that goes off the end of all of our runways called runway protection zones where nothing can be done. Or the FAA says you can't build, you can't congregate. So building amenities on the lower end of that, because the FAA equipment is not very big, it needs like a 10 by 10, you can see the little fenced areas around each of the antennas. But the rest of the land we can't do anything with because it's in the runway protection zone. What's the pile of dirt? We were doing stores there for a while for the runway project. So it's our land, so we're storing some of the spoils.
Here, the 20-foot mound of dirt
Yeah.
where the park is going to be will go away.
Yeah, and where are we in design on that? On that?
That'll be spread out. So there's two different things. The park itself is the very north end, and that design, that design is awesome. But what you guys think are talking about, the dirt mound inside the fence, not the park side. So that will be spread out. That's actually, with the runway construction that's going on.
Yeah, I think we got that, Aro. The question is, where are we in design of that park? Is that part of the Lemon Avenue second scope design? So we're going to work on that, and then the other piece we're going to work on is, this is that big empty triangle right there, Mockingbird and Lemon, Airdrome. So we're starting to work on some concepts because it's just kind of empty. We can't do anything in it, can't congregate, but we think we might be able to do some. And we talked about that at the Lemon Avenue Streetscape Design public input meeting. So we got some good feedback on, terracing it, just making it look nicer.
I don't want to really further delay the north entrance talk about just that. I sent the email about the concept of getting people in the park.
We're not opposed to that, and
I heard that y'all were, and I tried to track that down inside the park department.
that's not an accurate statement.
That's good to know, because the point I'm making is that with ducks and bird feeding, it's happening all the time, and the signage is great, but what's really needed is presence, and the park department has an interest in that, having someone there, other than the occasional ranger or city
Okay.
marshal. And I'm telling you, Mr. Deepner, eyes on the place, someone in there who could call in a ranger or whatever to remind the people in a friendly way about the ducks might not solve the problem, but it would absolutely have an impact over time, and people would learn, like, you don't do that here. And all it would take would be maybe 30 hours a week for some
Well,
volunteer to circle the park, and I can guarantee the park department will probably split the cost because they have an interest in it.
so I emailed you later. We didn't refuse. The issue, I think, as I recall, and we can revisit it, we were, anything we can do to stop that activity, because that represents a real risk to the airport, which is why we suggested and were rejected on the ordinance with a fine.
Yes, because, the reason I stated in the email was we're not even enforcing the rules on drinking, and then
I get it.
it won't solve the problem.
I get it. So, feeding the birds. So wildlife feeding, especially ducks. So you may not know, but an airplane hits a bird probably once every 3 days. I think that's our average. We just looked at that number. It's like 1 every 3 days. Yeah, it's variable. Now, largely those bird strikes are small, what we call rock pigeons, or the species that are large flocks. So airplanes hit birds coming out of love field pretty frequently. We've done a lot of things on airport. We've changed our turf management to reduce seed production, changed our mowing heights. So we've done a lot of stuff that we can control on airport property. And those numbers have come down over the past 3 years. The larger birds, like ducks, represent a much greater danger just because there's more mass. So a small bird gets sucked to an engine, they notice it or they get a bird strike. It generally doesn't cause much damage. So the larger the bird, the greater the risk, right? So we've done a number of things. We've done what we call, and Isaac is here, he's in our environmental group. We have a wildlife hazard specialist who's engaged in, we've got propane cannons to try and scare away birds from the ends of the runway. But because Bachman is a park, people frequent there, they bring food, and it's a nice respite for waterfowl. People feed the ducks, so the ducks stay. So we talked about an ordinance, imposing a fine if you got, saying it's prohibited. That wasn't the direction the park board wanted us to go. So we created a Safer Skies program. We've got a lot of signage, educational materials out there at the park. However, it's a fairly popular park. So the bird feeding is a pretty regular problem. The issue at hand is whether or not parks can't dedicate resources to that. They would like us to partner. What happened after that meeting, we went away and we kind of talked about it, we never really could get a handle on what the program was, what the metrics would be. And we said that the FAA we can't just cough up half of a salary for 2 or 3 people without a plan in place on hours of patrol, duties, sort of what they would be doing. So, and then it just sort of, everybody got busy and just never picked it up again. No, and we're not opposed to that. I mean, we would need an agreement, a formal agreement, interdepartment agreement between Aviation Parks, that Parks is going to be providing wildlife hazard mitigation service. We've got to justify how we spend our money off airport. So if it's just, hey, I'm going to have some people in the park, well, I don't know what they're doing. What are their job duties? We'll need. So what specifically hours of patrol? What are they going to do?
So that's what you need from the park department?
We would need something much more formal. It's not a,
Formal agreement.
it's not a handshake deal for me with John to say, okay, here's $70 grand a year or whatever. Yeah, we have several. And we don't have a problem with that. I just have to, as part of my wildlife hazard mitigation plan, I've got to show that I'm, what I'm doing, and so it's a good thing to do. We just never, I don't think at a staff level, honestly, it was much of a priority. I don't think it was much of a priority at the staff level. So, but we're happy to revisit. Okay. I don't think that door opens. I wouldn't open it. Now it works, Roger. Okay. Okay. North entrance. Okay, those are both. So Lemon Avenue Park. So we kind of done that, and north entrance. So we'll leave it on this. So forum discussion. So we kind of talked a little bit about noise, kind of what we can do. We're going to have a Love Field Environmental Advisory Committee meeting. We had one last Thursday. do we put a little check on there if they want to be on that mailing list? Because we do a Love Beats, kind of a weekly update of things going on, kind of focus on noise. So I won't belabor that. But, so alternate entry. So north entrance, alternate entry, whatever we would call it. So the airport had been working on an analysis of traffic impacts of an alternate entry. We had a number of issues that would benefit the airport with an alternate entry, and overall early indications on the work that we had done indicated it would improve, reduce vehicle miles traveled, and improve air quality around the airport. After discussion, then we talked to the Council of Governments, which was helping us with all the data processing for the vehicle data. They decided what they really needed to do, since there was a lot of talk about our entrance and what the effect was, and initially the scope of our study went maybe a half mile and to the intersections pretty close to Love Field. So North Central Texas Council of Governments, which does all the traffic modeling, took some money that they had because they've been wanting to look at a number of things. They were already looking on they're doing some public input for the Northwest Highway from the tollway east to, I forget where it was, not all the way to Lemon. So they put some money in there, and then they have been working on what they're calling a Bachman area study. But it's pretty big. It's I-35 to the tollway or Inwood. Inwood all the way up to Walnut and all the way south. Inwood to Walnut, 35 to Inwood, I think, right? It's not all the way to tollway. So anyway, we've handed over most of that traffic because Council of Governments has a number of things they're trying to do about Northwest Highway. We're just one piece of the big traffic puzzle. They're still trying to solve problems on congestion on Mockingbird. They've got intersections failing on Northwest Highway. So and there's been one community meeting thus far about the early sort of outputs. The consensus that I saw, and Aro is really the traffic expert, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, was that the concept of taking the alternate entry over Bachman Lake and connecting to Northwest Highway was not doable and didn't net benefit, especially since Council of Governments wants to reduce Northwest Highway from 6 lanes to 4 and make it more of a complete street, lower it to where you have throughput, and then deck, which works for us, kind of decks some parts of the service level of Northwest Highway to connect the airport or the neighborhood to the park. So in their modeling, they figured out that most of the volumes were really accessing I-35 from the north. The traffic that was coming from the tollway really wasn't getting off on Northwest Highway, coming over and coming down Lemon. It was exiting primarily Mockingbird. So most of the northern traffic was avoiding city streets, going to 35, coming down to Mockingbird and coming in that way. So their proposal, the highest and best improvement, comes from not having the entrance go across the lake and connect with Northwest Highway, but instead, Shortcrest is already going to be widened to 4 lanes. I'm just saying it was a. That's not my project. I don't know. Well, COG isn't doing that project. RO is 4 lanes. I don't think you have a bad attitude, sir.
I don't think so either. Well, you know, we work to get.
Yes, sir.
Done some good
Sometimes I
things.
have a bad attitude too.
Okay, we all do it at times. But as things get cooked up and then brought to us on the 5-yard line, basically, mixing my metaphors there.
Sure.
And then it's already done almost, and then
Sure.
we have the community input. Which of these three things would you like? Now, Shortcrest being widened has a huge impact on Bachman Lake Park. So somebody in the city, some engineer, I guess, if it's already been planned, said, let's do a plan for Shortcrest, we'll widen it.
But
And nobody's.
and in defense of a lot of those things, you know, those plans, the thoroughfare plan for the city has been on the books for a long time. And the question is, you know, if something's on there and people, you know, whoever participated in whatever process, in, you know, council process to put them on the thoroughfare plan, there was probably a public, to add things on the thoroughfare plan, there's a process. It includes public input. Now, if that happened in the 80s or 90s and everybody was busy or didn't know it was going on, and certainly we're better at letting people know what's happening. I mean, we are, as a city, are better. The fact that it followed a process and was done properly, I understand the frustration, but, you know, the staff can only take, without being mad at an engineer, although I get mad at engineers all the time, it's just, you know, these are the plans on the books, and there are a number of people who work very hard to improve transportation in the city, and they're just following the plan. So.
Well, and then, but here's the problem, Mr. Beegler, is these things happen in the past and things change. This city's changed the dynamics of the city. I know you
Sure.
said the process was fair, it's not the engineer, but people living here now.
Sure.
Who weren't even born when those plans may have been made.
But there's plenty of right-of-way on Shorecrest. I mean,
You're going to go to 4 lanes on Shortcrest.
mhm. and complete streets, so bicycle and pedestrian improvements.
Where does that come? You cut into your hill on your.
There's room. There's some room on that side.
You talked to, I mean, the park and the increased traffic.
I can tell you this: a street isn't going to take over any part of the park property. The street is going to be built within the street right-of-way that exists today.
Which is about 64 feet.
Yeah, there's plenty of room there. I know you think, oh, it's very crowded. It's not. It's plenty wide.
Shortcrest is a total disaster, right?
Well, because it's 2 lane.
Because it's 2 lanes.
Yeah.
We put the Southwest Airlines headquarters there on the 2 lanes.
Well, we didn't do that.
Well, somebody did, assistant city manager, who did it?
Well, Southwest, I would argue, has made a pretty big investment, and it pays a lot in taxes and has built 2 fantastic facilities, supports, I don't know what they got in there now, 20,000 jobs on their campus?
Yes, I don't see it. We don't see it in our quality of life, though, Mr. Beaver. That's the problem, is when you talk about the big picture, and I know this is off topic.
Yeah, I get it. I'm putting on a city hat now that on a micro level there's impacts, but on a macro level, the airport, Southwest Airlines, jobs, they all contribute to the overall economic health, which gives the flexibility to fund the various initiatives, whatever they may be, driven by the citizens. I mean,
The other argument is all those things have direct impacts on the people who live
I get that.
in the immediate area.
I get that.
That's not what those folks were thinking about when they're talking about, anyhow.
Yeah, no, there's a balance.
You have mentioned there's a history here of the airport being insular, and I appreciate the fact that you recognize that. I'm just asking, I'd like to see if you could try to do more.
We are, and we will.
Ways that make a difference in the quality of life. And also remember, this thing that's going on in Elmwood North Park and Midway Hollow are reducing the number of affordable properties. And that area, you all wanted to redevelop or proposed it north of the airport.
We just did a land study. I mean, I'm sensitive to the criticism that us,
People live in.
I know.
And then you redevelop that for highest best use. Where do they go? Plus, you know, you're living under the, I went to Rust. When
I understand.
There was no air conditioning. We had open windows and jets going.
Affordable housing in Dallas is an issue.
Well, your study was talking about getting rid of all those apartments.
No, not at all. That wasn't a plan of action. That's a land use study. We don't know. If you own the land and you did a site plan. That is a plan of action. I'm going to do this on this land. A highest and best use study looks at the economics around that property and figures out what is the best use of that
For
property.
investors.
Just the best use.
Well, no, because the last thing said that after 8 years, the investors could expect a 38% return on investment. So it was really, it's a real estate pitch.
Everything in Dallas is about real estate.
It is.
Everything.
Which brings me
There's
to my
no
last
avoiding
question,
that.
and I promise you will be my last. What's with the Sunny Oaks 10 acres there? What's going on? Every one of the north entries lands in that piece of property owned by that guy who's sitting on it, paying $175,000 a year in ad valorem taxes to sit on a piece of property you told me at one time you all would like to pay.
We would like to buy it, but the last offer we had was $75 a foot.
Are you all working with him in some way? Like
We are not. We are.
this is where it'll be, you'll make your investment. That's a fair
We.
question.
That's a very good question.
We.
Have y'all made any other plans for that property?
It's not our property.
It's owned by a private individual.
So Mr. Oates passed away.
Okay, well, it's actually an LLC that he's,
Of course, I understand.
sorry to hear that.
No. So we haven't had any conversations with MLT Development is the company or the LLC that owns it, because we're not doing anything until COG finishes their study. The COG study does say there is a net benefit of traffic improvement with a secondary entrance to the airport. So that,
Assuming that Shorecrest is expanded to 4 lanes, going back to the alternate entrance for the airport, how does that impact the alternate entrance?
well, until we really know where we would connect, we can't get in the business of doing the alignment. Right now, our rough alignment is to go between the 2 runways, which is on that property that's privately owned, and then, through the middle of the airport, and then we'll do a little below grade connecting to the terminal. The other things in play, though, are that silly little bridge off of Shorecrest. That's unnecessary. They really need a redesign of that whole, the way Shorecrest connects with Lemon, and there's not a throughway, and how you get that little stub to get over to Northwest Highway. I think before the city does anything, all of that's got to get figured out in a way that traffic could move a lot more efficiently through there, which is part of the issue with the heavy traffic in the afternoons, when it's better now because you don't have as many people at the Southwest headquarters, but and they had plans on the books to build a parking garage because the number of employees they have at that piece, that is called their tech ops area. That's where a lot of their mechanics and engineering folks are, in that building off of Shorecrest. So we just are waiting, honestly. We're waiting for COG to complete their study to give us some direction, and then we could begin the process of figuring out how we would design it, how we would design that roadway. That's kind of where we're at. I beg your pardon?
It's not if, it's how? Is that what you just said? On how you would
Yes.
design it?
Yes.
Well, that area is messed up, that's for sure. You can't get through there on a wheelchair, a bicycle, or on foot, that eastern side, so I hope that if you do end up doing it.
Well, it's like they're not, parks, Bachman Trail ends far away from Lemon. And so part of that Lemon Avenue Streetscape project, we talked a lot about that, how we're going to, because we've got land over there, so we're pretty sure we've got a really good pathway to do a nice pedestrian crossing at Shorecrest, which has no pedestrian crossing, quite frankly. And then that little blue line could be on airport property, and that'll bring you around the curve to connect up with the Bachman Trail.
I ride my bicycle over there 3 times a week.
Uh-huh.
I go through that intersection. There's no problem. There's a light there. There's a light.
But you're on the roadway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on.
If I was walking, I could be on the roadway too.
Well, if you were walking, you would be on the dirt.
I'm still on the roadway. If you just mark it off and say this is pedestrian.
Yeah, no, I mean, but you're in the roadway. The idea would be to get pedestrians and bicycles off of the roadway, get them separated from vehicular traffic.
I walked it the other day, and it's not pedestrian friendly.
No.
You talk about where you go to short.
Sure. Any other questions? Yes. Yes.
Your cell phone parking area out of left field, I used it, I think, for the second time in August, and I really liked it. Is there any plans to make it maybe a little bigger and maybe add to this time when I was there?
We'll look at lights. I don't think we're looking at expanding, but we'll go back and look at lights. We're doing a lighting project. We're converting everything. So with the entryway, everything's going to LED, energy efficient. We're getting rid of those bollards. So we can look at that maybe. All right, we'll look at that, make sure we got lots of light.
Had no problem and made it really easy to pull in there, park, and wait for either a call or a text. So
Yep. Well, that's the intent, and we appreciate you using it.
good building, I really appreciate it. I miss it.
We appreciate you using it. Yes, sir.
What's the difference in landing fees from just roughly between two extremes, say a Piper Cub and a passenger jet? When does the size of a plane warrant a fee? Do they have something in the mail or?
No. So for commercial airlines, they account for and remit to us landing fees. So they know what planes landed at left field, and they calculate the weight. So it's a landed weight. So our landing fees are based on weight for commercial. So it's tiered. So the Southwest, Alaska, and Delta pay what's called a signatory rate. They have a lease with us, so they're paying, and we adjust it twice a year, depending on how much money we need to support airport operations. So this, I think during the pandemic, it went way up because the number of planes went down. So it hovers around $4 per 1,000 pounds. So we collect about $20 million in landing fees. Now the GA, so a Piper Cub, if it was just based on weight, we would collect about, $24. So we actually have a different formula for general aviation planes, which is 60% is the operation, because it costs the same to have my ops people there if it's a big plane or small plane, right? One takeoff is one takeoff. So they pay, it's a weighted formula. So they don't just pay by weight, they also pay by the number of operations. We hire someone to do the formula, so I'm not going to pretend to say how it's calculated. But so instead of paying us $24, I think a Piper Cub, like a small, would pay somewhere in the $80 to $100 range per landing. So we just implemented that 3 years ago, I think, when we rolled it out. Now, one of the questions about it was that going to drive a bunch of small planes off of love field? And it really didn't. We really didn't see a reduction in our GA activity, which means they could have been paying all along. We just weren't charging them. So now we are. But our GA group is pretty good. We don't have a lot of small planes much anymore, and I think that's a market for us. There's so many wealthy individuals that have large, and the newer corporate jets are very quick and very quiet. They get up quick, they don't make a lot of noise, so I'm fine with all the corporate jets being at left field. All right, thank you.
Thanks
No more questions?
This is fantastic. Appreciate your response.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your continued involvement and your input. Good night, everyone online.